1,000 subs and all I can think to do is a Q&A. We gotta get further for good ideas to come. I guess before it's asked, I'm not gonna do a face reveal. Not because I'm scared of being called a horrifying freak show. I already know I am without the cam on. But I just don't feel like attaching my face to my videos. I've shown my face once as a passing joke. And that's the only times where I'll ever show my face. As a joke. That's just my style. So think of something else for the next milestone. With that out of the way, let's actually answer the questions. Archetype Architect. If you didn't see the poll, here it is again. Go vote if you haven't already. I'm going to be doing all of them in descending order. I already have ideas for these 4. It's just a matter of what you guys are more eager to see. I did the same thing with Deepest Depths when I was at 200 subs, so you can go back to that poll and change things. Well, as long as it is in assault mode, since that's the one that's almost done. I do have a list of archetypes that I think could have future entries in Archetype Architect, but feel free to leave any others in the comments. The main premise is buffing archetypes that never really saw competitive success or are long since obsolete. Just because Snake Eyes has left us all with a 1,000-yard stare, it doesn't mean that Tyr is that far behind us. So no, I won't be doing one on Tyr. Twins are the only exception I've made because, I mean, without Sprite being exactly what it was, this deck gets hosed by Nibiru. And I would like to make the deck actually competent without Gigantic needing to shield them from rocks. With Neospacian, I feel like this is gonna be the most demanding archetype to fix, what with just how many worthless cards there are in its catalog. Which, I'll say this now. Whenever I cover an archetype that Rada has made a video on, I'll just tell you straight up to go back and watch that video. I'll just discuss any minor rectifications that need to be made based on support. It saves me time in scripting and editing to just cut that aspect. Also, I don't see myself dissecting the cards in a manner that would be nearly as entertaining. So any dissection I do is coming entirely from the perspective of, how can a bottle of Jack fix this? After I've finished the current 4, I'll hold another poll for the next 4. I think polls are a nice way for you guys to feel engaged with the content, without necessarily letting you force me to make videos. I'll pick archetypes I covered based entirely off of bias, in that I actually have a vision for the new support. I don't want to just slap together good support and not really feel like I put care into its place in the actual deck. I was worried how a series with custom cards would be received. But I guess in a social environment where we're calling real cards customs, it's just hypothetical support at that point. So thanks for the support on it. When it comes to the actual contents of the video, it's gonna be mostly the same structure with all the matches, minus the board breaker hand trap testing phase. I realized it was redundant after the first few matches. Of course, I know how the Yu-Gi-Oh community is. When the game actually starts being played, that means it's time to close tab. What I care most about with the series is just my theory behind the support. The actual testing is just for fun to see if I've gone too far or not far enough. I thought about making duels a separate video so it has a more palatable run time, but YouTube's algorithm makes me worried how a double upload will damage the overall push of the video. I think I'll upload the core video, then have it linked to an unlisted video with the duels. That'll probably also save me waiting 4 hours for it to export. State of synchros and schedule. I don't have a strict schedule on when I'll make specific videos. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because I want to let you guys know about upcoming videos, but I also don't want to trap myself into making them obligations. I feel the videos turn out better when I just let them marinate in my head and get the full extent of my thoughts out. I'm very mood dependent on when I work on a video. When it comes to the State of Synchros video, I have a general idea of all the points of discussion. I just have to find the balance between thorough and excessive with it. Another thing I should clarify is that the State of Blank Summoning mechanic videos aren't necessarily entirely about problems. While the title may imply a negative connotation, it's just that Pendulum and Synchro are the 2 mechanics I feel have actively been damaged by links. So consider these 3 videos as an open and closed trilogy. I'll do a video on the state of other mechanics at some point, considering the fact that talking about the mechanics seems to do insanely well. But the fusion and ritual ones are obviously going to be more about the problem they've always had to contend with and not really links. And XCs are in a place where I can't really say it's too negative, and they weren't exactly bad on release either, so that one should be the most positive of the bunch. which also means it's probably going to be the worst performing of them as well. DDD. The next Dex Done Dirty is going to be Vanquish Soul. Dex Done Dirty is functionally just Archetype Architect, but I'm too lazy to make full-blown support for it. This has kind of given me an issue with making a distinction between which archetype is featured in which series. DDD is more about how the decks aren't too far off already. Decks that feel like Konami just did wrong by them, although it feels like a missed opportunity to not cover DDD in the series that is just called DDD. I'll just be doing the series whenever I feel like talking about an archetype that's current state frustrates me. I originally considered these two series names, but call it a hunch, I don't think they were gonna stick. Fixing DM archetypes in one card. I don't think that's feasible. At least not in a way that wouldn't blend all these different archetypes into a single pile of cards. If you're actually referring to the fact that most of them all revolve around vanillas, my first instinct would be a link one, since that's the easiest way to bridge the gap, but of course making it a link one also leaves room for it to be abused outside of the intended archetypes. Gee, I wonder why link ones are everyone's first instinct to fix things. Could it be because they're functionally dueling skills that you can interact with? I can see it having an effect that foolishes a vanilla, then searches a card that mentions it. This encapsulates the Magnet Warriors, Pieces of Exodia, Summon Skull, Dark Magician, Blackluster Soldier, Blue Eyes, and Red Eyes. The problem is, cards that mention them doesn't necessarily mean every archetypal card. I guess you could make it an essay long, listing what you get for each individual card you would send off it. If the sent card was blank, search a blank card. You get it. But I mean, Red Eyes needs a game plan in general. It's honestly one of the most confused archetypes in the game. Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, and Red Eyes all have this weird jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none deal going on, where they all have their toes dipped into every mechanic, except Pendulum, because of course. Never mind the fact that a Pendulum retrain of Dark Magician would literally be Atem's favorite card. None of these decks are particularly good with all of them, so usually you choose to build around one. And even then, those aren't very good either. Chaos Max be damned. Without an individual card in mind, just a philosophy, make the vanilla cards actually feel way more like a core piece of the deck and less like a liability that you have to run. BLS had those string of cards that wanted you to run the original vanilla and give him additional effects based on the material. It could utilize the fact that the original is a non-effect monster. With most effect negation cards, they require their target to be an effect monster. Despite the fact he would technically have effects, he still isn't an effect monster. This game is very easy to understand, I assure you. Point is, finding ways to leverage their perceived weakness as an actual mechanical benefit would be a good start. Best designed cards that I don't like. Snake Eyes! When I go plus a billion, that's good design. However, when my opponent goes plus a billion, that's bad design. But seriously, it'd probably be Sky Striker. It doesn't do anything outright unfair, but its playstyle and cards are just obnoxious to play against. The fact Ray constantly comes back makes the duel feel like it never progresses. Even if the game is technically progressing, it creates the game state equivalent of purgatory. Also, I think an archetypal Pot of Greed, but better, is revolting. This card shouldn't exist on principle, regardless of how good the deck is or isn't. I can see the appeal of the deck. It's a very control-oriented deck that forces both players to actually play Yu-Gi-Oh!, not usually just flipping floodgates in order to slow the game down. Not that the deck can't play them. It's just that I don't find Striker's gameplay interactions fun to play with or against in general. But they did decide to just print a quick play tag-out spell that gives the deck far better damage potential. Print more Striker cards like this, and I might take back everything I've said about this deck. And lastly, for questions, I have to address the allegations, since they've come up 3 times now somehow. No, I don't sound like Shikamaru. I used to, and I felt like my voice shifted off, and I was a little disappointed by that, but apparently not to some of you people. Since we're out of questions, I'm just gonna start to ramble about stuff in general. Here's a bit of life advice you didn't ask for. I just want to share it because it helped me, and if it can help you, I guess it's worth sharing. I'm pretty frail and out of shape, so one day I had an idea. I could barely do 10 push-ups without the wind being knocked out of me, needing like an hour to lie down and recover. I decided that I'd pair 10 push-ups with a routine habit of mine. I didn't really view it as punishment. It was just a matter of, if I can do this, then I can also do 10 push-ups. So doing that, I was eventually able to do 10 push-ups with no setbacks. My arms went from twigs, the normal arms, they're just regular. I accomplished what I wanted, prove I can do 10 push-ups without coughing up my lungs, so I could finally stop. But I didn't. Now, I didn't up the scale, I'm too lazy for that. But instead, I decided I would start banking them, then do them all at a later date. So I do like 30 to 60 if I fall that far behind. This way I'm cutting myself some slack in a way, but also still holding myself accountable, which also leads to me actually doing more. And being able to do a bunch of push-ups while feeling only mildly winded, as opposed to gasping in anguish on the floor, makes me feel better about myself. Obviously you're not going to get shredded from this, but it's still good for you. This is all a long way of saying, try to pair healthy habits with your other habits in general. It can really help your mental state. Just focus on disciplining yourself and not outright punishing yourself. Hold yourself accountable in some regard. Something I don't do when working on videos. Advice on content creation. I mean, I'm at 1,000 subs. I have to be doing something, right? And I'd like to share with you the little bit of knowledge I've gained with my modest success in this time. Firstly, the most important thing. Tags. Specific tags. I noticed by trial and error, every time I included the rights holder of a video subject as a tag, the video seemed to travel further than had it not been included. This includes publisher and developer, depending on what exactly you're talking about. My trial and error only occurred because I applied tags in a very plain way. Just everything I verbally mentioned in the video. Sometimes I mentioned the rights holder, and sometimes I didn't. So that's how I accidentally tested that. I'd recommend doing what I did and just make a doc with every subject you talk about frequently, then have every common tag under it so you can just copy paste it onto the video and apply specific tags accordingly. A no-no YouTube tells you the exact opposite of, do not change your thumbnail, at least not while you're a small YouTuber. Every time I did that, the video flatlined. You may not know it from looking at it now, but this video with 30,000 views originally flatlined at 20 views in 3 days. Every time I've adjusted the thumbnail on a new upload, it shriveled up and died immediately. My only theory is that it resets the algorithm pushing the video, but already registers the time it was aimlessly being pushed before as the video failing. So the video spends more time failing, when in actuality it spent more time trying to reach the target audience. But I don't know anything specific, so it's all just an assumption. If you have a sizable audience, like I do now, I think you're allowed to actually adjust it without conflict. Since I redid the Gradle one, and it seemed to keep the same pace. I'd have to assume it's because the video is still doing well from an inherent viewer base, which registers as doing well to the algorithm even after the reset. So you better knock it out first bat, or just let it rock no matter how badly you want to fix it. When it comes to actually making thumbnails, I use Bfunky. It's just a free tool you can use in browser. All you need is a 1280 by 720 transparent PNG and a vision. Thumbnail making is my favorite part because it's the only way I can cope with having zero artistic talent. If you think any of my thumbnails look really good and I have some sort of innate talent, I don't. I just dick around clicking things until they look good. I accidentally figure things out. It's like a caveman discovering fire, but it keeps happening. The only few tips I can impart onto you as someone who doesn't actually have an understanding of art and its rules. Try not to have too much in frame. It can become an incoherent mess. I feel like the Gradle thumbnail is just that, but I'm just gonna say that's on brand for a custom card series. A trick I've noticed is, by having a border around your thumbnail, it makes the image feel more contained and less chaotic. This can offset having too much in frame, but it's not like it'll band-aid fix every mess you make. Also, annoyingly, YouTube has rounded edges, so they'll look like this if you don't round them, but if you round them in the actual client, your perspective might drive you insane, but it's just a caveat you have to make. You should also test your thumbnail's visual clarity. I recommend doing the Discord preview test. Take your thumbnail, dump it into a Discord message, look at the preview image, and review the visual clarity of it in that scale. If it isn't very clear in that scale, you have to adjust it until it is. You have to account for mobile size for your thumbnails, and it can look extremely muddy if you're not careful, so just be aware of that. The other trick is to also acknowledge the font as an element of the art. Make sure it pops out, not just making it big. Having different colors for certain words can help give visual emphasis, but I'd say the most important thing with the text is for it to have depth. Just because the element is called drop shadow doesn't mean it has to function as one. You can also use it to add more visual depth to the text. It also helps to have a unique texture instead of a flat color for the text as well. Make a copy of the text perfectly overlaid, remove the excess elements, and then apply an image to it as a mask. Then you have a textured font. After that, you can make another layer over top of it to change its color. If you know color theory, you'll have way more success with visual emphasis on text layers. If you're like me, you're just trial and erroring what colors work until you're satisfied. When it comes to editing, I wouldn't classify myself as a good editor. I just do it pretty plainly. I hate editing. It's just a war on my ADHD to sit down for minutes to just throw images on screen to visually aid what I'm saying. It's tedious to put together visuals, it's tedious to put them in the editor, but it's also the easiest part. It's just that it's hard to find a rhythm to knock them all out at once. If I can't feel a flow in working, it feels more mentally draining. Ironically, more taxing edits are fun and feel like they take less time despite being maybe like 10 minutes or so, as opposed to the half a minute it takes to put in a file, apply effect. If you have the same struggle, I recommend what I did at the start. I used the actual segments from the script as a way to physically segment progress in editing. Originally, I'd have each segment as its own independent file, then export all of them and put them into one file together for the final video. It made the progress longer technically, but it helped me set a physical way to measure progress and feel like I could actually finish making the video. I don't do it anymore because I've gotten used to it, but I think that's a helpful way to start at least. The software I use to edit is HitFilm. There's probably better free editors, but it's the one I came across. It lets you have multiple video and audio layers, and that's really all you need when it comes to making videos. It also has the capacity for green screen, which I discovered at random. I also learned things I can do in editing just by dicking around. I'm personally not a fan of constantly throwing up random memes, clips, or constantly playing loud sounds as if to dangle keys for the viewer. If there's ever a visual gag, it's entirely because I thought of it in the script, hence it actually belongs in the video, instead of thinking, no, throw up the subway surfers, the engagement's falling, quick! I feel it's pretty important to provide visual aid for what you're discussing, not distract from it. I make my content how I want it to be, so as long as anyone's watching, that's fine by me. At the risk of coming across as pretentious about my videos or giving the idea that I feel like I'm not like the other plebeians, I'll just explain the method behind my madness. I feel like the idea behind the typical video essay is kinda antiquated, so I don't see my own videos in the same vein, despite the fact that's what they literally are. I feel like there's this weird fetishization of informative videos, to the point it feels like people actively feel the need to cram information in front of their actual talking point in order for it to feel valid. It's okay to just talk about things, dog. Not everything needs to be a detailed history lesson. The informative aspect should help inform your point, not distract from it. Of course, spending like 20 minutes rattling off wiki details is also good for watch time, so maybe I should take some cues, actually. This isn't to entirely belittle the content form, I just don't like that people feel the need to make every video some informative slop, including info that most viewers aren't even gonna bother retaining, under the guise of feeling like they gained something from the video. Your own point should speak for itself. That's plenty content. All I really set out to do with my videos is share, honestly. Be it love, suffering, or if I feel like I have some insight that's sorely lacking in discussion. It hasn't come up yet, at least not to my knowledge, but I'm fine with React Andes reacting to my content, so long as they're actually engaging with the topic, since that's really the point of me making the video in the first place. I really felt that with the Pendulum video, because every time I've seen people talk about Pendulum, it's always under the pretense of it being hated, and then maybe them saying it wasn't that bad, or some other variation of pittance towards the mechanic. I felt that aspect is long overplayed, so I actually wanted to dissect the issues actively plaguing its place in the game, as well as try and highlight ways the pendulum should be expanded upon. Outside of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'm kind of at a crossroads. I do want to just make videos in general, and no doubt a portion of you will watch them, but the vast majority of you won't, and that's perfectly fine. I feel like the videos will at least travel to the target audience, and that's all I really care about. I'm just worried that if anyone subs for any other particular content, they're gonna be bombarded with Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. I said when I started, hey guys, not a Yu-Gi-Tuber, so maybe don't sub for that, but like half of my videos are Yu-Gi-Oh! And like 90% of my video ideas are also Yu-Gi-Oh! For better, or very likely worse, this game pollutes my brain in a way that generates infinite content. I'm just terrified I might get more people into this game. I would not wish this game upon my worst foe. I could make a separate channel, but I don't really feel like having a separate channel unless it's an entirely different style of content. I did toss around the idea of making a channel about actually teaching Yu-Gi-Oh!, but gave up on it. Dog, I don't even know half of the shit that's going on in this game's backdoor. I do not have the knowledge nor the resources to manage a project like that, and certainly not the willpower. Maybe someday, but for now, that's rotten in the vault. For Fire Emblem, I've been tossing around the idea of a series just shining a spotlight on characters I like, just like a normal video essay on them, but they're in a playlist called This. So it's about how personal these characters are to me, and maybe that gives some more appreciation for how the characters are perceived. Other than that, I've had videos on Three Houses and Engage respectively rattling around in my brain for a long time now. The Engage script is 23 pages long currently, but I don't know when or if I'll actually make them, since I don't have a way to capture footage for them, which is a recurring issue when it comes to video ideas. I have one video left on Binding Blade before I finally free myself from it, that being rewriting the story. I originally wanted to do a retrospective on every game, but Binding Blade made me void that idea entirely. It's also a very overdone format, and I want to do my own thing when it comes to Fire Emblem content, and right now I don't really have that. I wanted to do a video about the summoning pool in Fae, but I'm not sure it's really worth it. I mean, it's probably one of the least pressing issues about the game, but it's the one that's been driving me insane for the longest, and I don't know if I'll really be adding anything to the discussion. Gundam and Persona are two series I don't think I'll make consistent content on. I wanted to do a video about my journey with the Gundam anime to encourage others to get into it, but I'm pretty sure we're both well aware of the archaic stance on fair use content that Japanese companies tend to have. So I'm hesitant to really do any anime-related videos in general. I was thinking of doing a video on all the Dreamcast Gundam games. Let me know if that sounds appealing. In terms of Persona content, I only see myself doing a video about the modern entries, and one sort of unique video about all the modern entries. I tried to play Persona 1, but that game needs a remake. Other than cursed technical issues around the time I tried to play it, the combat feels like an absolute slog to sit through, just like 2. Which is a shame, because I was surprised to see how entertaining the first cast actually was. Damn, it's almost like Persona's always been good at character writing or something. Just keep in mind all these video topics I'm sharing with you aren't locked in or scheduled. They're all to be determined. The only schedule I have is the fact that I've sort of subconsciously forced myself to upload at least twice a month. I don't really chase trends because I have the paradoxical mix of being a perfectionist and lazy. And well, the 2 times I was behind on topical subjects still did really well, so I'm fine moving at my own pace. Well, that's all for this parasocial link. Meet me again at 10,000 subs. I sincerely doubt we'll get there, but who knows? Maybe someday I'll be able to make 1/4 of minimum wage off YouTube instead of 1/1,000,000th of it. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already, in case I ever need a separate platform to resolve an issue on this one. And take care of yourselves, and be kind to others. I don't know how to end this video.